everybody, and good morning. Welcome to our second Twitch live stream, and this is for my intro psych classes that we have. Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Okay, I see a bunch of you getting logged in, and you're communicating with me through the chat. If this is your first time on Twitch, that's the best way to interact with me or ask me questions or anything like that. But could someone let me know if you can hear and see me? Okay, the wind is definitely still whipping around outside, so hopefully the internet connection is pretty decent. I'm gonna wait just a second just to make sure. If someone could give me like a thumbs up or a yes, that'd be amazing. I did see that we have a... Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. I was driving home and I could see that there is another fire. It looks like the Hughes fire, they're calling it, out in Castaic area. So stay safe and keep an eye on that with the wind. Hopefully everything will be okay. But it is week number 2 for us. And I know this has been like the weirdest start to a semester in a while, between the power outages that happened at the campus and just a lot going on. So I hope everyone is hanging in there and doing all right. What I want to do this week, and this should be shorter than last week's because now that we're kind of in the swing of the class, what I want to do is kind of go over what we have going on this week and where we are at. And we'll spend a lot of time today talking about exam number 1, since that is probably the biggest focus and area of anxiety for this week for most of you. So as of right now, we are still in weeks 1 and 2. Remember that you have access to 2 weeks of material at a time. So week 1 and week 2 will end this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So make sure that everything from those first 2 weeks is completed by Sunday night. Please, one more time, remember that I don't accept work late. So if something comes up, or if you have an emergency, or you lose power or internet or whatever might be going on, please make sure you do reach out to me before the deadline, and I'm happy to work with you. After the deadline, it will be unfortunately too late. So just please keep that in mind as we move through the rest of the week. So last week we spent a lot of time talking about the class in general and kind of going through the organization and format. And then we talked about week number 1. So if you haven't already done week number 1, you still have access to that through the rest of this week. Chapter 1 and chapter 2, discussion 1 and 2, and so on. And I did, of course, post the recording of last week's live stream. If you want to go back and watch it, it is there for you right here. But since we are now in week number 2, what I'm going to focus on today is week 2, looking at what we have due this week, paying special attention to that first exam. So we do follow a very similar format of every 2 weeks. You have everything open to you. You'll have an exam. You'll have those discussions. So this week we're covering chapters 3 and 4. So we're looking at biological psychology and sensation and perception. So make sure with both of these chapters that you do 3 things. As always, 3 things for each chapter. So 1, you're going to want to read the chapter in the ebook. And remember, if you're on our ebook site, the Psyched site, you can go to chapters up at the top, and that's where you would find the chapter to read in the ebook. The second thing that you'll want to do is go through the lecture that I created for you. And so remember with the lectures, if I give you a video, make sure you watch it. If I give you a link, click on it. And they do follow that little 5-tab format up at the top. And they will always have audio if you would rather listen to me read it to you. So make sure you go through the objectives and summary. On the Beyond the Book page, there's a couple of videos that might be really helpful for understanding types of neurons and how they communicate, and the 10% myth of the brain, which will come in handy for the discussion this week. In popular culture, lots of movies and shows featuring these topics. I have a couple of clips and videos for you kind of highlighting that. The last, second to last page is always key terms, so these are the things you need to know for the exam. And then finally at the end, this one's a little bit about applying the information and topics that you can apply to your life in some way. So make sure you click on everything, go through all of the links, watch the videos, and you're going to want to do that for both chapters. So chapter 3 and 4, make sure you read it in the ebook, read through the lecture, and watch the lecture video and take notes. So we are at 11:45 like always, so hopefully you're okay. It looks like everything is going through all right on my end, but I always will log it on about like 8 to 10 minutes early, giving people a chance to log in, and then we'll start right away at 11:45. So once you have done all of the reading, you do have two discussions this week, like always. So discussion 3 and discussion 4. So discussion 3 is related to chapter 3. And as always, you can see my instructions at the top, followed by my video. So don't forget to watch the little video for some tips and reminders. And then be detailed in your responses, right? So make sure that you show off your knowledge and understanding of the materials. I think it helps a little bit to think about them more like mini papers, so that you're really like elaborating. Better to give me too much than not enough. And then don't forget to also read through 5 of your classmates' responses and reply to one of them, and that's worth 2 points. So altogether 15 points, just like last week. And so this one is all about neurons and why they're important, how they communicate with each other, reading a little article, and then describing the myth of the brain, the 10% myth, and providing 2 reasons why we know it to be false. So once you're ready and you've read through everything, you've read through the articles here, you can hit reply, as several people have done. And then don't forget to also reply to one classmate to get those points. A little heads up. So the spot where people tend to struggle the most is on number 2. So when you're talking about the chain of events and processes involved in neurons communicating with each other, make sure you highlight the topic of electrochemical communication, right? Tell me about all the different elements of how neurons communicate. That tends to be where people lose points the most, so just a little heads up on that. But once you've read the chapter and you've read through the little article, you can do discussion 3. And then discussion 4 is related to chapter 4 on sensation and perception. This one I think is kind of fun. You get to do a little experiment. More on that in a second. So again, for consistency, you can see my instructions at the top, my video underneath. Same thing where I think about them as mini papers and show off your knowledge and understanding. So with this one, you're going to read a short article about smell memories, what they are, how they happen, how they occur. And then you're going to do a little activity where you gather some items and smell them and see what memories and associations come up for you. So I gave you kind of a list of some items here, and then you can choose any items that you would like as well. And you're going to take a moment with each one and kind of close your eyes and smell them, like seeing if any associations or memories come up. And then that's what you're going to write about. Did you have any memories or associations? What did you respond to? What did you try? Anything else you would suggest? And then the one that's worth the most points is this one here. Like, what are smell memories and why do they occur? And I'm really looking for you to explain the process that leads to a smell memory. This is where people tend to lose points on this one. So really show off your understanding of what forms a smell memory and that whole process. And then finally, how can you use this knowledge in your personal life in some way? So just like the other one, you'll hit reply, and then don't forget to also reply to a classmate. Let's say I really love what Shane had to say. I could reply to Shane, right? So don't forget to do that piece. I know it seems like a small element, but it is worth 2 points, and you don't want to lose those 2 points for every discussion. So again, do your reading, go through the lecture, watch the lecture video, discussions 3 and 4. And then once you are ready, we do have our first exam this week. And that's what I want to spend the rest of our time today talking about. And then, of course, I'll give you an extra credit question and see if you have any questions for me. But we do have our first exam. And the exams are worth 75 points. So they're worth enough points that you should definitely be prepared, take them seriously. You want to do well on them. All exams are on the ebook site. So if you click on exam number 1, it's going to remind you of that. It'll say like, you have to go to the ebook site to take it. So make sure, obviously, your book is registered and purchased, which should be everyone, as anyone who didn't complete that orientation was dropped at this point. So the exam is on the ebook site. So let's go ahead over to the ebook site together and take a look and talk about that a little bit more. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. So just like the little mandatory orientation quiz, up at the top, you're going to click on exams. And then it'll bring up the instructions. So here's that mandatory orientation quiz. And if you scroll down, here are the instructions for exams 1 through 4. And it's the same instructions, but I want to make sure that you're feeling good, that you know what to expect and you know like what the restrictions are. So let's talk about this together for a little bit. So for the exams, you have 75 minutes to complete the test. You only get one attempt, so make sure that you're ready, you're organized, you're all set before you hit start. Once you start, the clock will start ticking, and you don't want to be in a spot where you weren't ready or weren't organized and kind of have to panic through it. So when I say ready and organized, to me that means a couple of things. So the first thing I would say is make sure that you have 75 minutes and a quiet place with good internet, and that you can take the exam, right? So set yourself up for success. Make sure you have a quiet spot with good internet, that you have plenty of time. The other thing that's part of that is make sure that you've studied and reviewed, that you know all of the terms that are going to be on the exam. You can use your notes and your book during the test, but I promise you that if you're trying to look up every answer, you're going to run out of time. So make sure that you study like you would for a traditional test. And if we go back to Canvas, you'll notice there is a study guide right here underneath exam number 1. So if you click on study guide number 1, this is going to bring up a list of all of the terms that you need to know. So if it's on this list, make sure you know it. It will be on the exam. If it's not on this list, you don't need to worry about it. You can let it go. So if it were me, especially since it's the first exam and you don't know what to expect if you haven't taken a class with me, what I might do is go through and type or write out each one of these terms, and I would have that organized and in front of me for the exam. I'd review it. I might make flashcards or use like Quizlet or something like that, but I would have everything written or typed out. That way, if I can't remember the answer during the exam, I know that I have it all right here to reference. What you don't want to do is get to like Pearson's R, right, in chapter 2, and then have to like look through the book, look through your notes, look through the lectures, and use up that really valuable time. So if you write out the study guide and have it in front of you, you're really setting yourself up for success. There's also a couple of diagrams on here that you'll need to know. You'll be matching them to different descriptors. So make sure that you use the study guide as a tool to prepare for the tests. If you know everything on here, you should be in really good shape. I will never trick you on an exam. You'll never have a trick question. I write all of the exams myself, so it should be very clear and straightforward and connect really well to what we're covering. So once you've studied, once you've prepared, once you've done the study guide and all of that, go ahead and begin your exam. And you'll notice you can begin your attempt. It's the same style and format as you saw with the mandatory orientation quiz. Really important that you make sure you save all your answers. So make sure everything is like that gold orange color before you hit submit. And the second that you hit submit, you will get a score right here on the ebook page. And remember that those scores don't go over to Canvas automatically, which is a little obnoxious, but that's how Canvas is set up. So don't worry if you don't see the score in Canvas. What I'll do on Monday, after these 2 weeks have passed, is I'll bring all those scores over. I'll grade all of the discussions, and then you'll get an email with some feedback for general feedback for the whole class, along with your score being posted here on Canvas. So that's where you can find the exam. The exam is mainly based off of things that I've been covering in the lectures. It's also based off of the book. Everything kind of should coordinate together. So when you're on Canvas, make sure you use that study guide as a really great tool to prepare. That's going to help you quite a bit. So it's right here under week 2, underneath exam number 1. And there are like 73 questions, I believe, on the exam. So you have like roughly a minute per question. Some of them are true false, which are really fast. Some of them are multiple choice. There's a couple of matching, but it should all be stuff that's hopefully very familiar from what we've covered last week and then what we're covering this week. So I know exams cause people a lot of anxiety, but remember you get your notes and you get your book and you have all of that at your disposal. So over prepared, better to be overly ready and like not have needed it than be halfway through the exam and wish you had done more. So are there any questions about the exam or the format, the style, what to prepare, anything at all for those of you who are with me live? I'm going to wait just a second just to make sure. If you think of any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And if you think of something later, you can, of course, email me. And I will leave a little bit of time at the end for questions as well. But otherwise, as you're getting going on week 2, make sure you do discussions 3 and 4, read chapters 3 and 4. The exam is due this week. And if you haven't done stuff from last week, remember it is still there for you. And everything from weeks 1 and 2 is due by this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So please be really mindful of that deadline. I will give you the extra credit question here in a moment, and we'll, of course, post a recording of this a little bit later. No, so there aren't any practice tests necessarily, but if you go to our ebook page, up here at the top where it says additional resources, there's a couple of things that might be helpful for you. So under additional resources, there's this little thing here that are flashcards. So it's all of the key terms from the chapters. You could go through and do that if you would like. I also made a few of these little like test yourself activities. And so there's one for chapter 3 that might be a little bit helpful for you, and then a couple for later chapters. So not necessarily a practiced quiz, but there's this little test yourself that you could try along with those flashcards, as I mentioned. And then otherwise, the biggest thing is just to make sure that you know all of the materials that are on the study guide. So if you know all of the terms on there, you should be in really good shape. If you want to make sure that you've done everything for weeks 1 and 2, there's also this little wrap-up checklist at the bottom of week 2. So you could go through and just make sure these are all the materials that are due for this first 2-week section. If you want to just double check that everything has been completed, or just make sure you've done everything listed under weeks 1 and 2, same thing. So I do have a couple of reminders for you that I'll give you right now, and then I'll give you the extra credit question and show you how to answer it. So reminder 1, and I typed this out earlier and will always remind you, there's only about 12 people who have figured out the subscription. There's over 100 of you. So if you have the opportunity today or this week to figure out the Twitch subscription, I would greatly appreciate the help. It saves me an incredible amount of time. So thank you for those of you who figured it out. And if you're watching this later as a recording, that is the way that you can still get points and answer the extra credit question. The other reminder I have for you, if you're looking ahead, our next Twitch live stream will be on Wednesday, January 29th at 11:45 a.m. Okay, so next week on Wednesday, we will do a live stream again. That will be week number 3. And what I'll do next week is I'll go over kind of some things that I saw in weeks 1 and 2. I'll give you some feedback about the first 2 weeks, the exam scores, the discussions, and then we'll talk a little bit about what is due next week, and I'll give you the extra credit and all that kind of stuff. And again, these should now be maybe like 20 minutes or so on average, so kind of short and sweet. But please feel free to show up to these with any questions you might have. As people are asking them, I'm trying to make sure I respond. Otherwise, let me give you the extra credit question. I'll show you where to answer that. And hopefully this is something that helps you a little bit with the discussion this week. So this is the week number 2 Twitch extra credit question. So the question for this week, and I'm going to go ahead and read it and put it in the chat. What is meant by electrochemical communication? Describe both pieces of how neurons communicate with each other. So describe the electrical piece and the chemical piece. What is meant by electrochemical communication? Describe both pieces of how neurons communicate with each other. And this could be something that you definitely use as well in your discussion 3 for how neurons communicate. So hopefully it kind of helps you out a little bit there as well. So if you want to answer that question for extra credit, make sure that you're either joining me live and put your name in the chat, or if you're watching this later, you're subscribed. And then you go right here to optional Twitch extra credit number 2. And once that's here, you'll click on Start Assignment, and then you can type your response right here in the box. And as soon as you're happy with it, you'll hit Submit, which gives you a confetti burst and pizzas. Of course, why not? Pizzas are always great. I love pizza. Pizza and cake. It sounds like a good night. So that's how you can get those extra credit points. And again, if you do this every week, it adds up to like 16 points, which would definitely help with like a missed discussion or a low exam score. So I hope that a bunch of you take advantage of that. And so otherwise, those are all the kind of big things I wanted to share with you today. Again, 20 minutes or so, kind of short and sweet. So if you haven't done week number 1, make sure you go back and do week 1. Everything from week 2 as well that we covered today. So don't forget that everything from weeks 1 and 2 is due by this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So good luck on the exam. Prepare and study, be organized, be ready to go before you begin. I hope you all stay safe. I hope that they are able to put this new fire out relatively quickly. It's kind of looking a little, I live in Simi and it looks a little closer than I would like it to. So fingers crossed that you all stay safe and are hanging in there with everything going on. I'm going to hang out for a little while. If you do have any questions for me, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat. I am going to minimize my video just so I'm not staring at myself. But if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in there. Thank you so much for those of you joining me live. I'm really grateful for your company. And if you're watching it later, thank you for taking the time to do that as well. So thank you all. I'm going to put that in the chat. Have a wonderful week, and I will hope to see you all next week for our week number 3 live stream. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me live. And again, I'll hang out for a little bit if you do have any questions for me. I'm sorry, Thais, I didn't see your question. Sorry. So the exam is due by this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So you're in my. This is for intro psych, just to again clarify. So everything from weeks 1 and 2, if you're right here, is due by this Sunday night. So it says January 26th. Right here is the due date for exam number 1. So everything from weeks 1 and 2 is due by this Sunday night. And Cole, I don't believe that I have. No. So I have received a couple of access memos, but I don't believe that I have one from you. So you're definitely going to want to give access a call as soon as you can, and see if they have it, if they've emailed it out. Because as soon as I get them, I will obviously send it over to get that updated, but it can take a couple of days. So I would definitely see if you can give access a call or an email as soon as possible, just to make sure that I do get that so you're set up for what you need. Yeah, that might not be the worst idea because I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I have sent a few of them over. If you want to send me a quick email too, then I can write you back and let you know. I can go look when we're done here if yours was one of them. Of course. Yeah, I want to make sure that you have, obviously set up for what you need. So if you can email me, then I will send an email to web support and see just to make sure. I want to make sure that you're all set. And I am still here. If any of you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And of course, if you think of something later, you can always email me as well.